Shut up and sit down.
Yes, might have gotten away with it, too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dog.
Riding my bike, riding my bike.
You blasted kids! Why didn't you mind your own business?
Riding my bike,
Blasted meddling kids.
everything's nice.
And it would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
On a red one, two.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Lee Grand, Evan Price, Lance Hapler, and Jake Von Duren. Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it.
We could ride together all day long.
And I would have made millions if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
We could put our bikes down, but that
And I'd have done it too, if you kids hadn't come along.
everything's nice when I'm riding my bike, riding my bike, riding my bike. Everything's fine when I'm riding my bike.
What can compare with the thrill of a brand new bike? For bicycling is a healthy, active sport, enjoyed by almost everyone. Not only does it provide vigorous outdoor exercise, it's a nice, fast way of getting from one place to another.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von Duren, and I'm here by myself. For the most part. Evan will be back in here with us a little bit later on. But today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Matt and Lance are kind of away on vacation right now, and we do have a little topic that we wanted to talk about. It's about an article that's a little bit old. It's been around for a couple of years, but I think it's kind of relevant to things that are going on in the world today, and the Olympics and road racing and just racing in general. And with all of you athletes out there, it might be a good question to ask yourself. So on that note, let's start by giving Matt a call.
What's up?
What's up, Mr. Matt? It's Jake from
What
the
if I
Dial
answer the phone
Podcast.
like, what's up, ladies and gentlemen?
How you doing, bud?
Not bad. How are
Good,
you?
good. Where are you at?
I am just north of Sacramento, California, in a town called Woodland.
Oh, nice. How's the weather down there?
It's hot.
Yeah, I can
It's supposed to be
imagine.
like 105 or something today.
Yuck.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, we're spread out all over the country, so we're doing something different this week. And I am going to be asking you a question, and I'm just kind of curious to know what your response is. There's an article that came out, and it's kind of in line with some stuff that he's been saying for a while, but you know who Phil Gaimon is, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. He's got an article that just came out in Bicycling Magazine, and the title is "Being Fast is Pointless, I Would Know." And I'm curious, Matt, do you agree with that?
I haven't read the article, but
I guess I could have shared that with you, but
no.
Yeah.
But this is a good question because there's different like angles, right? Like,
yeah.
Is being fast pointless? Well, no. There's lots of great things about being fast, like just being able to ride with a group of people and being able to move around that group more comfortably when you're faster.
Yeah.
There's just huge benefits. I even remember basically when I became faster or became one of the faster riders in one of the group rides that, I used to do, which was like this beaches ride. I remember just like hanging on for dear life in like a pace line. And then the next year after like a winter of solid training, being able to, whenever I wanted to, go to the front and be able to push the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so much safer to be able to do that and to have control. Whereas when you're hanging on for dear life and you're just hanging on a wheel, yeah, you're getting faster, you're getting good experience. At the same time, it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's value to being faster.
Gotcha.
I think that if Phil were to ride with, our group, like a flogging ride or something like that, he would say, oh yeah, like I am faster than this group of people and it's safer because you're faster.
Yeah, you can keep the riffraff away.
Yeah, so that's one value of being faster, and there are more, I'm sure. But I think his point probably was along the lines of like, so you get to the, certain location 3 minutes faster. Like, it doesn't matter, and whether you're pedestrian, cruiser, wearing your high tops and cruising around, or you're wearing, skin tight suits with an aero helmet, like, come on, like there's there's not that huge benefit to it.
Yeah, you just kind of have to
So I
ask
definitely
yourself.
think there's different angles.
Yeah, you're going to be fast, but at what cost? And he did make a point there, just to kind of go back to your original point, was you only need to be fast enough to safely enjoy the rides that you do. And that's a really good point, just to be able to, not cause commotion, not be able to, or be able to keep up and not do dumb things. It's a good, valid point. So. But a lot of the other things that he delves into is things like, your diet. You're probably doing things at a detriment to being able to fully enjoy your life. We're only on this planet for one go around. And if you're just solely like committed to like a perfect diet, there's probably some stuff there that, you would do differently and you're just not fully enjoying life. I mean, I don't know if that's like at a cost to your health, but there's stuff in the diet part of things that he's getting into that makes it a little bit different. Like, he missed out on a lot of like, fun experiences that he could have had that he didn't necessarily get to do because he was, striving to get to a world-class level. His health.
That's tricky because there's two sides of the coin there where it's like, hey, had he not dieted, he might not be on some team that goes to the Grand Tour, and this experience of going on this Grand Tour might be really enjoyable. Maybe it wasn't, but I mean, I'm sure he got to see parts of the world that all these other people don't get to see. Whereas, he maybe missed a glass of wine, but like it's all in all, it's not the biggest deal. He was at a certain level where he was a climber at the pro level, and they do really starve themselves a good bit, and so
100%.
That's tough, right? And like you and I both enjoy like a glass of wine, especially if you're like camping or on a date with your wife or all these things, and it would be pretty sad state to be like, oh, I have to have a salad at this restaurant, and I'm definitely not going to have a glass of wine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I also think that you and I are probably past our point of wanting to be that crazy competitive. So.
Yeah, well, there's still a little bit of that. I want to be the local hero, I guess, to a certain degree. But when it's all said and done, it's more about just having fun at this point of the game.
Exactly.
How about like the health aspect of it? Like just taking into consideration as a professional cyclist, how much he's missing out on just because he's on the bike so much. When you start getting into like some of the non-weight bearing aspects of cycling and the loss of like bone density or in muscle imbalances or things of that nature. What about that?
I think that the pro Peloton has figured out that, occasionally running or something like that, they're aware of the risks at this point. And I think that they are, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that they're aware of the risks now. And I think they're taking steps to mitigate the real like problematic things that people really had 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I think Team Ineos was like running on their, like going for like long runs on their training camps. And I was like, that's
Smart.
crazy.
That's well played. And his recommendation was, consider stopping at some point in time during your day or your workout week and, implement things like yoga and some core work and stretching and, or just kicking a ball with your kids, just being physically active and having that load on the body. Cool. Sleep. One of the things that he said that was kind of difficult was having to, set your alarm and get up early in the morning to go do a training session at the expense of losing out on sleep because you're not getting enough of it. And you're going out and you're training, but, it's kind of counterproductive because you're not giving your body the chance to fully recover because you're, minimizing the amount of sleep that you're supposed to be getting when you're out training for 30, 40 hours a week.
I'm guessing that pro athletes are doing a better job of sleeping, even if they are hitting their alarm early, when you compare them to parents of young children,
Sure. Or what about the likes of a guy that we know by the name of Evan Price, who likes to get up early in the morning and train, and then he's working 60-hour weeks, and then he's training some more, and then trying to be a little bit social to boot. I mean, do you think Evan gets enough sleep?
I don't know his metrics, but I'm guessing he doesn't. But, it's one of those things where he's reached this and I could be wrong, but it seems like he's reached this happy, like, medium with his, training versus, like, life balance.
Yep.
And I feel like he's got it figured out. And, like, my recommendation for him would be, like, if this is working, stick with it as long as possible because you're going to have a 1-year-old baby at some point and, this schedule's not going to work, right? Where it's like, but if it's working now, like,
but for him,
it, man, let it roll.
What if we said, okay, Evan, all of a sudden you don't have to work 50, 60 hours a week, maybe more like 15 to 20 hours, so that you can maybe get the optimal amount of training that you need, but the optimal amount of rest and recovery where he can actually get his legs up and relax. He's not doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tricky. I mean, I think, it's sometimes the more time you give and, the more time that you have like spare time gets like wasted away versus like when you have to schedule every minute, you're like, oh man, I got 10 things more done that I wouldn't have done if this was like a Sunday, right? Where it's like the only thing I got done were like getting ready for my Monday or, whatever it is. I think sometimes being busy ends up being good, but at the same time, like it would be nice for Evan to kind of say like, oh, I keep the same schedule. I'm just getting an hour extra of sleep per day, or something like that, where it was just like scheduled in.
All right. So that kind of plays into the next one, which is time. Pretty much she's saying that everything that you do comes at the cost of something else that you could be doing.
Yep.
I that resonates really well with me. I think I'm an okay dad. I'm not the best, not the worst. I think I'm an okay dad. But I think about this sometimes, like when I like start to add in the notion of, all right, I have this work schedule that I'm keeping. I have this training schedule that I want to keep, and there's these things that I want to do because I still think I have the capacity. And then you take a look at your week and how busy you get and how much time's left over and how tired you are. I'm like, there's a lot of time that I should be spending doing more stuff with my kids because that time is precious and I don't want to miss out on that. So if I were to try and train more to get even faster, that would really come at a detriment to my relationship with my family, and that's something that I don't want to do. So that's probably why you don't see me out there putting those ridiculously long 15, 18, 20 hours that, say, Lance is putting in. However, he's at a different station in that his kids are all gone. He's retired. He has the time. I'm not there yet, but it would be nice, but I just don't think that I can sacrifice that. How about you? What do you think there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of rhetorical, but
you and I are more in a similar like kid life, family balance problem, right? Whereas like every single second of every single day can and is filled with stuff that you should be doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just like the second that you wake up, like, okay, well, I need to whatever, clean the kitchen, like get the laundry, like there's 1,000 things, right? And it's like, all of that stuff gets pushed back or pushed off because you want to go do your bike ride. And, it's like totally fine and reasonable to try to figure out this balance. But there's always some work that should be being done. And whether it's home, work from home or work, there's just an infinite amount of stuff. Like I just think about projects like computer work project kind of stuff all the time. And I'm like, every day I don't finish the stuff that I'm supposed to do every single day. Yeah. It's like
this past weekend was the first couple of days that I'd taken off in probably like almost 3 weeks. Just been super busy, like going 7 days a week, doing different stuff and yada yada. But it's fun. But I purposely took the week off so that we could do different things. And on Sunday was our wedding anniversary, and my wife and I, we did all the usual stuff, like going to Home Depot and yard work and all that other fun stuff. But there was a moment of time where we were sitting on the couch, and she's sitting there just like totally relaxing, kind of like scrolling through and looking at different things, reading stuff, and I'm sitting there kind of fidgeting. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "No, nothing." And then I didn't want to like have her feel obligated to go with me, but I just got up and left the room. But I actually went upstairs and folded, I think it was like 2 or 3 loads of laundry, just because I felt like I needed to be getting stuff done. And I totally understand what you're saying there. Cool.
Yeah. And so I just think that like there are times where whether you're kind of younger, maybe potentially, or your just life balance is just different than where we are currently.
Sure.
Like I do think that this is one of the busiest times of life. I do think that like when we retire or when our kids are older and they're gone, like there won't be quite as much stress. I could be wrong though.
Yeah.
It might just be like, nope, things are always going to get busier and busier. That might be the case. I just have no idea.
We'll find out in due time. It's not too far away, right?
Right.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. And so the last one, let me double check. Actually, 2 more real quick ones. Risks. Taking risks to be faster. And this is where I'm going to like stare at Lance Hepler. He always says that he's lived a good life and he's the one that will go bombing down anything at the risk of being faster than everybody else. But, Phil alludes to like remembering back when he was in the pro peloton and he's losing contact with the front group on a climb. And then he basically threw everything out the window and just absolutely bombed down the hill 100% to go catch up to that group. Yep. And if you think about it, like, all right, well, yeah, you're trying to win, you're being competitive, you're trying to earn a paycheck and all that other stuff, but at what cost? Do you think taking risks is worth it?
No, I don't. I don't think it's worth it at all. I mean, part of me is like, every time you sit on the bike, it's like a huge risk that is, I've talked about this in some of the videos that I've posted where it's like, there's just like this huge risk that you're going to not be able to pick up your baby kid anymore. And it's like, it's just never going to be worth it,
True.
At the same time, we do it because we love it. And I think that it's just this huge spectrum where it's like, like it's fun to bike. It's something that we do. It's something that bonds us with our friends. That is super important to us. We need to recognize that there is real value there. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the risk is extreme. And when it comes to things like descending, I've slowed down a ton because you start to see like how close you are to crashing all the time. Whereas when you're newer to cycling, I think when you're newer to cycling, you just don't notice it as much. You're like, yeah, that was a crazy descent. We went super fast. That was fun. And you don't think like, oh, you're one rock away. I mean, Lance, speaking of Lance, like you're one rock away from, breaking your back or whatever, I think he came away pretty well with the hip injury that he had. But like, it's so scary, those descents. And I think that I've slowed down a lot on my descents. That being said, it's so easy in a race scenario to just get lost and be like, and even in Ironman races where I'm racing Whistler or whatever, I'm pretty much going to go hard and go down because race mentality is different. And I find myself being like, hey, this is a race. This is a competition.
Yeah.
If it's training, it's training. If it's training, who cares? You can get off and walk your bike down the hill, but at the same time, it's like training is one thing. Racing, if you're racing competitively, I don't know. I just think you kind of have to go for it a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy though. Like, I agree with you, but something happens in the moment. There's a switch that just turns off in our brain, and we just go dumb and just absolutely start bombing down stuff. And you'll go back and you'll look at your ride profile and like, really, I hit 56 miles an hour going downhill on my road bike that could have had a flat tire, something could have failed, a rabbit could have run out in front of me. I mean, whatever. But I don't know. In the moment, it's still exhilarating. It's still one of those things where it's like, oh, this is such a good time. But maybe that's just something we need to start being a little bit more mindful of. Would you have any words of wisdom for Mr. Lance Hepler when he listens to this?
He won't listen to me. I mean, but at the same time, I would love to see him be careful descending. I just don't. Okay, so here's the thing. He's like made peace with like, hey, if he has a bad crash, like, he's good in his life scenario, and that I totally respect that. At the same time, it's like, well, what about us? Like, we would be upset if you hurt yourself and can't ride anymore. And I know that seems trivial, but like it is. Like, I really do want him to be, careful on the bike because we want to ride with him. So.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
And then the last bit was just recovery. Even it's just for fun, you need to recover. And he's just thinking that maybe people aren't recovering enough, or you're breaking yourself down so much that you're not doing a good job of recovery. And so the long-term effects there could be problematic. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it's hard because like I firmly believe in like fairly large amount of volume for training does make you a better athlete. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people recognize how much volume it takes to be good.
Yep.
But I think that the thing that you learn or should learn is like, hey, when is this injury different? And that's when you need to start ignoring volume and be like, okay, don't try and pile on volume, or don't try to quickly ramp up volume. And don't try to race yourself back from an injury, because that's when you get some of those, I think, long-term permanent damage.
Yep.
That's just a theory for me.
Oh, those are excellent
with
points.
My whole Achilles thing, where it's like, I think this, like if I had just given myself more rest and not rushed back to higher volume, that I think that potentially the Achilles stuff might not even be an issue. Who knows?
Good points. Good points.
It's a theory.
Cool. Well, so to answer the question then, is being fast pointless? Would you agree or disagree with that?
I think I'll still stick with disagree if I'm put on the spot, and it's one of the things where it's like yes or no. I think that Phil's like argument is different, right? Where he is like, here's a whole bunch of points where, that are all valid. Here's a whole bunch of points that are all very valid on why it's not important to be fast. That being said, like, you could just make another article that's the exact opposite. In fact, Phil should do this, where it's like, here's why being fast is excellent. And we talked about a lot of this where it's just like, you are training at that certain level. You are getting to experience traveling and all these things you wouldn't get to experience otherwise. And you are in some ways safer when you're on these group rides when you are stronger. Like there's just all these little tick, tick, tick things that, would counter argue what he's suggesting there. And that's okay. I just think that for him, I think it's like, these are two fun articles that you could write and they would be contradictory and that would be perfectly fine. But he made his points and I think they're all extremely valid points.
Do I sense a YouTube video coming up from Mr. Matt LeGrand that might touch on this? You do talk about a lot of stuff that helps make you faster, helps quantify how fast you actually are.
Yeah, I don't have any plans to make anything like that. That would be fun for sure. I would want to, I don't know. I would want to have some sort of more detailed argument on like if you are whatever 5% faster, then you have the option to do this and this and this.
Sure.
Versus if you're, I think you just need some more quantifiable like information there. So maybe
could be a nice little counterpoint.
Fun to do.
Yep, cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of videos, anything coming down the pipeline from your channel?
Yes, I am currently working on a video that's, I don't know exactly what the title is going to be, but it's going to be something like the Garmin Edge 530 versus the Wahoo Element Bolt version 2. I've got it pretty much finished. I'm just kind of dropping in some, kind of B-roll footage, and I would love it if that was live tomorrow. Could be the day after. Vacation stuff is tricky.
Feel you. Cool. All right, my friend, we look forward to you coming back into town. When will we see you? You going to be here next week?
I'm coming back into town this weekend. So Hopefully I'll be around, Saturday afternoon and Sunday. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be around.
Sounds good.
We can do.
Yeah, maybe we'll hit you up for a ride or something. Cool. We'll
That'd be amazing.
Travel safe, bud. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks for your time, Matt.
All right, later.
All right, see you, bye. All right, so as I've said, all the guys are out of town, with the exception of myself and Evan. But Evan's, he's a massive workhorse. He's out there working with the people, making the world a healthier place and fixing broken parts and pieces. I was able to snag him for 10 or 15 minutes to sit down here and talk. Evan, it's been a minute since you've been on the podcast.
I thought we were going to pretend like I was actually out of town or something like that.
Looks like somebody wanted to call
us.
That
was a call. There you go. Yeah. That was Matt. We'll pretend like that was Matt.
It might actually have been Lance. So
I think that was Lance. Actually,
that was you. I'll call you back in the
Lance,
shoot.
you're third in line today. I'm sorry. Lance is waiting in line for something right now, isn't he? Like actually waiting in line?
He's at Disney World, and we're going to talk to him.
He's literally at Disney World. Right
exactly.
Now.
While he's waiting in line for some ride. It's a small world, Lance.
Yep.
Cool. So today we're going to talk about this little article that came out in Bicycling Magazine. It was a while back. It wasn't recent. It was back on December 12th of 2019. It's been around for a minute, but
it got recycled recently.
It did. It kind of hit the news again, and it just touched on some points that I thought were kind of relevant. And I wanted to ask you guys what your thoughts were. And the question he is saying, or not saying, the statement that he's saying is, being fast is pointless. I would know. And my question to you is, do you agree with that?
It's. I have a hunch as to why this is recycling right now. I think, and this is when we're recording this. This is actually the day after I think Simone Biles pulled out of the Olympic team event in gymnastics.
Correct. It was yesterday.
And I think Simone's the highest profile of this. But I think if you look at the last couple of years, you can find a few examples of elite athletes really struggling mentally, however you want to put it, mentally, physically, however. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a reason this got recycled recently. And I know it came up before the Simone Biles thing, but this is a very relevant topic right now.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with Phil, but I bet if we sat down and talked about it, I'd probably agree with most of the same points. I think Phil Gaiman's interesting. Phil Gaimon is very good at getting people to click on things.
Yep.
That's why his YouTube channel is successful. That's why he's a likable guy. I like the guy. I'm sure we would disagree on a lot of things, but I like the guy.
Yeah.
But I do think he likes to push buttons. And I know what he's trying to say here. Do I agree that being fast is pointless? No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, as a blanket statement, no.
In the same respect, too, he got to go do all these things. He got to go be fast. Yes. He got to go race on the pro continental.
He
and
wouldn't
the World
think they're
Tours.
pointless if you really talk to him.
In the moment, and he got to experience those things, and he's still out crushing KOMs and doing the whole thing, and he has to be fast, but there are certain things that we'll touch on here in just a minute that he touches on that I think make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
He makes a lot of good points in this article.
Another good point of somebody that might have made the right steps, and we may have not questioned him, but like, why are you doing this right now? You're in the prime of it. You're one of the best in the world. Is Tom Dumoulin. He took time away to kind of focus on...
In the cycling world, that's probably why this recycled, yeah.
And he's coming back around. He's starting to race again, and he's kind of found his center. So,
I think there's a generational argument here that I hear, and this is just with going back to Simone Biles, because I always try my very best to see both sides of every discussion with this. But I think the problem generationally that I'm just going to say I'm part of the younger generation, so I'll say, let's say the older generation needs to realize here, and this is more past Gen X, this is a little bit older. Yes, those were very, very tough generations. They didn't have the hyper-concentrated focus that these sports have now. Back in the day, Eddie Merckx could go and win a sprint stage, a climbing stage, race, train a little bit, race, train a little bit. The guy's training was racing, basically.
Yeah.
Nowadays, these races have become these hyper-focused events. Guys come in and peak, they taper for them, they're pressure cookers. So when you're talking about somebody like Tom Dumoulin who's at that level for so long, that is incredibly mentally fatiguing. Beyond the physical fatigue, which is obvious.
Yeah.
The mental fatigue from this is really, really significant.
Is that something you think you can speak to right now?
I am not Tom Dumoulin, but yes, I'm very mentally fatigued.
Yeah, you're not racing on a world tour team and all that other stuff. But Evan, you work more than anybody I know, or you're up there. Maybe
I know people who work more than me, but you being one of them back in your group.
But when we talk about the work, though, I'm thinking about cumulatively, because you are a professional triathlete. You do win or get some sort of support financially for that. So we're going to call that as part of your work. You're a physical therapist and a pro triathlete. When you add up the hours per week that you are training with the hours per week that you are working, you blow everybody out of the water. I'm sorry.
It's a lot right now. I'm very lucky to have people around me that let me do those things. But I will say this year's been a real realization to me is there is a limit to what you can quote unquote grind through. I think, I was talking with one of my friends about this who, owns a clinic out on the East Coast and is an awesome guy, and is that guy when people look at him from the outside and would say, like,
sure,
God, I wish I could be this guy. Oh, he kills all the time. He's doing this. He's running CEU courses over the weekend. He's running his clinic. He's doing all this. He had some, and I know he's okay with me sharing this because we've talked with friends, is he had some serious burnout issues.
Oh, yeah.
This last year. Very, scary mental burnout issues. And I think it's good when you look at these top-level guys, too. And I'm not saying me and this guy are top-level by any means, but there is a point where the expectation becomes internal and it's actually not what people expect around you. And that's when it gets a little scary. And I realized that for myself was I was expecting myself to do all these things and do them well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay sometimes to sit down and say, I need to, get out of shape for a little bit, or I need to be lazy for a second, or I need to not do this, just so that you don't crest over that burnout. And I don't know what that cresting over the burnout looks, but I've seen people get there, and it's not a good place to be. I've seen very healthy people have heart attacks and strokes.
Yeah.
And that's scary, and it is. So I think it's for people like Gaimon, probably in this hyper-focused professional cycling world, Tom Dumoulin, Simone Biles. I'm sure we could find multiple other examples. I think Kevin Durant was there a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody remembers when Kevin Durant was kind of having that breakdown too. I think there's, at that very top level, we live in a hyper-focused society. Yeah, sometimes I think being the best is pointless because it gets to the point when it's your health or being the best, that's when you got to make that decision.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's jump into the article. Let's touch on some of the points that he kind of alludes to, and I just kind of want to get some of your feedback. With respect to this, being fast thing, being pointless, if you will.
Diet first.
The diet. Can you talk about the diet? Is that like for you? we always talk about the Swedish fish and potato chips
my diet
and
gets
pizza.
made fun. Yeah.
But is that something that would be different for you, or do you think that's
I have a very consistent diet. Even Cassie would agree with me that I have a pretty consistent diet. And so for me, I've never been somebody who really stresses about the diet. When I was younger, maybe I did. When I was getting into triathlon and I felt like I was a bigger guy in the sport. Over the last few years, I'm not a bigger guy in the sport anymore. I've shredded myself down to what I would say is not actually that healthy of a weight. I could probably put on 10, 15 pounds of muscle and be a much healthier person.
Sure.
But with the diet, I've always been very consistent as to what I eat. Is it super healthy all the time? No, because I don't want to take in the extra stress of that.
Let me ask you a question then. If you were to be able to be fully sponsored, fully supported, 100% everything, didn't have to work a full-time job, and you're going to go out and you're going to really try and push your body to the next level, how does your diet change?
It changes a lot. I would be cooking quite a bit more. Cassie for sure would be like, you're cooking for yourself, bud. There's no way I'm doing this for you. But I would definitely have a bigger focus on eating more well-rounded.
Sure.
I get pretty hyper-focused on taking in enough carbs, basically. I would be eating more purposefully, definitely.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Less reactionary, more purposefully.
Yeah. Do you think that comes at a detriment to you enjoying life?
Absolutely. I love food more than anything. Half the time I do like excessively long training days is like, yes, I need to build my aerobic base, but if I'm adding an extra ride there, I'm sitting there thinking also like, man, I love pizza. I'm excited for having 2-3 more slices of pizza here. And even though I'm definitely not a drinker by any means, me and Cassie enjoy having like a glass of wine, like 2-3 times a week. I'll have a cider once a week on the weekends, which is great. My tolerance is about 1 drink. But when they're talking about diet, I know, Phil, I know has talked about this in the past, and other guys is they'll take alcohol out for the whole season. Even though that's only 2-3 drinks a week for me, that's like where I get my evening enjoyment after a 14-hour day. If you told me like, hey, bud, the wine glass is gone now, I'd be like, this maybe is not worth it.
The simple pleasures kind of just go out the window, right?
Yeah, they do.
Cool. So the next one would be health. And this is really specific to road cyclists, but we've talked about this before, just the fact that cycling is a non-weight-bearing sport.
Yeah, luckily for triathlon, I've got this one figured out.
Yeah. What is your thought on that, though, in terms of like your health being jeopardized because you're so hyper-focused on being fast that you're not doing all the little things that you need to do to avert from having things like osteoporosis.
Yep. So I'm very biased towards running in this aspect, in the sense that cycling is not a natural sport. Don't get me wrong, cycling is my favorite sport, but human beings were not made to ride bicycles. Mm-hmm. We were made to run. So I do think if you are running and building your running and getting faster, you're building as a healthy person. Now, yes, there are many stories of eating disorders and running and all of that. But the bottom line is those people usually break down at some point. When you look at the long-term good runners, I'll use Bernard Lagat as an example. Great athlete, lean guy, but has always stayed very healthy and always stayed, fast over the years.
Sure.
When you're doing it right, running develops strength and should. Mm-hmm. Doesn't develop this incredible leanness or anything like that or osteoporosis. When it's done correctly and you're training right and you're not overtraining and you're fueling yourself right, running can be very healthy. Cycling, and even I'll say swimming on the other hand, if those are the only sports you do, they do develop the body differently, and whatever your definition of health is, because whenever we get into these discussions, I would say it depends on what your definition of health is. Yeah, you're going to need to do something else like strength training, running in the off season, anything, because osteoporosis is, you don't want to be breaking your thoracic spine like Vincenzo Nibali did a couple years ago.
Gotcha. So, he basically says, and I talked about this with Matt, was, set aside some time for yoga, some core work, some stretching, playing with your kids, just being physically active. If you're going to be hyper-focused on getting fast on the bike, just, come over to my house, do some yard work.
Build a door. Do woodwork. Me and Cassie even talked about this. I've been trying to I need to start coming up with more random tasks around the house to do, because I'm like, I like doing those, but then I get into training and I'm tired. It's like, no, I need to cut an hour out of training and go and like weed the lawn or, do anything like that.
Cross-train, yeah. There you go. All right, the next one is sleep. How much do you think you suffer when it comes to sleep? Do you think you get enough sleep in general?
No, for a while I thought that I could operate as a good athlete at the pro level off of like 7 hours a night. I'm realizing the more that I look at Whoop data from guys, a lot of these best guys are actually getting like 9-10 hours a night.
Really?
It just couldn't. And I mean, and the same thing. It's like you as a father and also running your own business here, there's 0% chance you could get 9 hours.
It was last week.
Like one,
There was one night I was elated. I was so excited because I got 7 hours and 10 minutes of sleep.
Yeah,
my average, no
like
joke.
6.
It's about 5.5 to 6 hours a night.
God, yeah,
and
yeah. See, we couldn't ride for Trek Segafredo.
I just can't sleep. That's my problem. In the morning, back and shoulders all start to hurt, and I'm I just get them, go drink a coffee.
Exactly, and this is where this is very limited by what your life gives you. I do believe your body can adapt to whatever amount of sleep you give it. But when we're talking about top level performance, that's different. And that's where, yeah, I probably lose.
So
that,
for him, though, he was saying that to be fast, you do need to have extra sleep. But a lot of times you're doing yourself a disservice because you're cutting out that sleep so that you can get up early, so that you can get that extra session in of
That's
doing
the
intervals.
greatest trade-off in the
Yeah, so you're taking away what your body needs, and then you're adding extra layers of stress to it.
Fatigue and stress on top of it. Yeah.
So that's something that's a problem, and if you're not so worried about that and you're putting the sleep first, that that's more optimal for you. So
absolutely.
How about misery?
I liked this that he was talking about this. I was just talking about this about somebody. They were telling me like, God, the Tour de France is boring. This is a patient of mine who runs marathons.
Yeah.
He's like, why do you guys watch the Tour de France? And I told him, I was like, there is something romantic and historical about how much suffering is in professional cycling. It's in triathlon too. Anybody who wants to watch the battle, watch Lionel Sanders in that last 10K. I'm sure any person could go up and be like, "Why are you doing this to yourself right now?"
Yeah,
there is. I do believe our brains, as I'll say, elite endurance athletes. I like using that term because I do think your amateur endurance athletes still should not go into this world or try to go into this world. It gets romanticized suffering, like really suffering. This is self-selected suffering, and that's what Phil Gaimon always says. He says, we're lucky to live in a country where we get to jump on a bicycle and self-select our suffering.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'll use, obviously there are countries in this world where you don't get to choose your suffering. That is very much, but I do think that there's something to that being enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sounds very backwards, but anybody who's ridden a bicycle fast enough for long enough and really suffered around guys around you, guys or gals, there is very much a camaraderie around that. But solo suffering, I think, is where it gets a little different. Sure. That's at the elite level where it's you go on that workout and you do it by yourself again, and again. And weirdly enough, I do find a lot of happiness in that. I find it's the one thing I can really control throughout my day. It's one thing I can really grasp and control. My misery comes from, and I'm sure a lot of these guys would agree, is when you're not able to get to those points.
Yeah.
When the fatigue builds in, when the numbers aren't there, when the workouts suck, and you're suffering, but you're not suffering at that top level.
Yeah.
I will gladly go to a 6x1 mile workout if I'm hitting the numbers and welcome all that pain. Love it. Absolutely love it. It feels great. I hate when those numbers aren't there because sleep's not there, recovery's not there, you feel like garbage. So misery, I think, is actually like misery can be happiness to an endurance athlete.
To some people, yes.
Yeah, but there is a burnout with that. There's a too much of a good thing, and that's
When was the last time you went on a bike ride solely for the purpose to just slowly enjoy yourself and take it all in?
Last time me, my buddy Kit, and Cassie went on a recovery ride together. It was probably 3-4 months ago, if not a little longer. Yeah.
And still, that was built into your regimen of
and
training.
I remember that. Oh, it was, because I still had to get 10 hours that week. So, yeah.
Gotcha. All right, the next one would be time. So you're doing things that come at the cost of something else that you could be doing. And I know that you got to get with people, so we'll run through these last ones quickly.
I still got 5 minutes, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that the sacrificing of your personal time is worth it to be fast?
Oh, that's a great question.
Of all people, this is probably the best question.
I really don't know that answer right now. I honestly do not know that answer. If you ask me in like 30, 40 years, I think I'd say yes, because I do think there's what my question that even Cassie will ask me and I'll ask myself too is, what else would I be doing?
Yeah, there's that.
I don't know. I think this is kind of me, to be honest.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Now, I can answer that question for you. I think you're walking a thin line. You're doing a good job of managing it, and you're keeping yourself composed and together, and you're getting results both professionally from a work standpoint and professionally as a triathlete. You're getting good results. There's going to come a point in time where you're going to get married. You're going to have a little one running around.
Yes,
that's where it changes. That's the paradigm shift right there.
Yep.
If you maintain
because then what
your
else I would be doing would be that
schedule, you're not going to make time for that little one, and that's where it's all going to go sideways. And you'll understand it a lot more when that moment comes. You're like,
I agree.
I remember the days when I used to, train 25 hours a week and work 60 hours. That was a long time ago, and that was fun. But knowing you'll figure out a way to make it work. You'll trim it down from 25 to 15. You'll still work a gob hours, and you'll still be a good dad.
I've joked with some buddies that I'll probably try to be as fast as I can off like 10 hours a week at some point. Gotcha. But I think I'll probably hit the Jake 9 to 10 hour range and sit at that for a long time. But yeah.
All right, and then the last one, I'm going to call this the last one, is going to be the risks. The risks that we take when we get into that race situation, the bombing descents or the sketchy corners or, going into something blind. Is it worth it? And we find ourselves doing it. It happens.
Yeah.
It still happens to this day. We might even be by ourselves. We might be on a group ride. We might be in a race.
Yeah.
We're doing stupid stuff to be fast. Is that risk worth it?
See, this is from the road cyclist and triathlete perspective. There's two different looks here. From the triathlete perspective, it's interesting because very rarely will we take a risk on the bike during a race. Just as a triathlete, even if your goal is to win that race, because you're always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah,
you're thinking like, is it worth going down here to gain 2 seconds to lose time on the run? So, or to not make it to the run if you hit the ground.
That is a good point.
Cycling's different. So when I was cycling racing, that 2 seconds means everything because if you lose the group, it's over.
Yeah.
So for me, my mindset was never wired to always want to win bike races. When I would go and do bike races, it was, I'm going to sit at the front and hammer myself until the teammate who probably needs to win this stage is going to go and do his thing.
Yeah.
So from a triathlon perspective, it's actually different to where the risk comes from, okay, in the swim, how deep do I want to go right now? And I always talk about risk for me on the run is because I'm very aware of what I can do to myself in the run.
Uh-huh.
Of the 3 sports, I do think it's the one sport I can kind of shut my brain off and go to that place where I could probably hurt myself.
Gotcha.
So risk for me, at least as a triathlete, and I think there's a lot of triathletes I would agree with this on the run as you've developed as a runner over years, you have that decision time during run where it's like, okay, it's starting to hurt really bad right now. How much do I want to risk on this day to not make it to that finish line?
Yeah.
Or to make it there and do well? Des Moines was a decision I had to make where I dropped out. That was going to be bad. And I've had other races where it paid off. You push that level and your body sustains and does well.
Yep.
Are the risks worth it? That's only hindsight being 20/20, in my opinion.
Okay, so I guess this will be the last question then. Is being fast pointless?
No, being fast is not pointless because there are a lot of people who have developed a lot of speed in their lives, sacrificing a lot of things. And I think that at the end of the day, if you're that person and you could look back and say that was all worth it, then no, it was not pointless.
Do you think it's pointless for a professional cyclist?
No. Do you get to see the world?
Yeah.
You get to do all those things. Phil Gaimon wouldn't be Phil Gaimon without professional cycling.
And it's a very elite, small, select few group of people that get to be there.
Yep.
What about the aspiring people that maybe have some potential or might be faster? What about just for the local hero? Is being pointless fast? Or fast or fast pointless?
That's closer to where I'd say maybe.
Yeah.
That's where I would say.
In some respects, yes. In some respects,
Is
no.
winning a Cat 3 race worth your life?
Yeah.
No.
Well, Gaimon says it is, and he backs that up by saying you only need to be fast enough to safely enjoy the rides that you do.
Yeah, unless that ride's a really, really fast group ride, then it's worth being fast.
I would tend to agree with that, and if the rides that you like to do are a race locally or whatnot, I mean, that works for me.
So. That's the thing is I think if you got a fast group, then it's being fast is pointful until as long as you're with that group.
Gotcha.
Is it worth hammering that group ride every week? Maybe not.
Cool. All right, Evan. Thank you, sir. Go go fix the people, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
Bye. And last but not least, let's give Lance a call.
Hello.
Lance freaking Hepler, how are you?
What's up? I'm doing good.
Not much. Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing good. Miss you a little bit, bud, but doing good. Where are you standing right now? What are you looking at? What are you doing?
Let's see. I am in Disney World at the Animal Kingdom Park, currently standing at a meerkat exhibit and watching these meerkats all stare at us and try to warn each other about not messing with the Lance romance. And there's obviously people and kids all around screaming, and we're going to deal with that for this whole phone call. So
just keep your pants on, all right? They're probably keeping a close eye on you. They probably heard about you before, right?
They have.
Cool. So as I've mentioned before, we're all kind of all over the place. So this is a different format. And like Lance said, he is at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, having a good time with the family. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this little article that seems to be recirculating around from Phil Gaimon. And we'll touch on maybe why. It actually came out in December of 2019, but I think it's a good article that we still need to kind of come back to every now and then and just kind of do a little bit of a reality check. I'm not sure if you saw that, read it or whatnot, Lance, but it was the one where he said that being fast is pointless. He would know. Did you happen to catch that one before or see that?
I perused through it quickly when you sent me the link a few hours ago.
Okay. So I just want to run through each one of the points and see what your take is on it. I've already had a chance to sit down and talk with Matt, and I've talked with Evan, and I kind of got their sense, and it's going to be kind of neat to see how these things all kind of compare and contrast with each other. So
cool. Yeah.
The first one, we'll just kind of scroll down. Well, let's just talk about like why Phil Gaimon is saying being fast is pointless, and is that relevant to everybody being fast is pointless? For him, being fast was to try and make it to the world tour level, and all of the sacrifices and things that he felt that maybe were a little bit reckless or whatnot that he kind of did through the course of his career, and now he's saying that you only need to be fast enough to safely enjoy the rides that you do on a regular basis. So on that note, I mean, to a certain degree, yeah, you can agree with that. But then when we start to like dig this apart and peel it apart and look, take it off layer by layer, you start to see things like, yeah, I do that, and yeah, I do that, and yeah, that's kind of dumb, and so on and so forth. So let's dig into Lance Hepler and see what your thought is. The first point that he brings up is the one on diet and talking about all of the micro things and whatnots that he's doing just to get to the marginal gains of being able to kind of stay ahead of like your recovery and the inflammation and all the sacrifices you have to make. Would you say that diet in general is something that's a problem, or things that you're sacrificing your own personal life in the spirit of just being fast?
That's a good question. I probably do that to excess. Yes. I have not tried to hide the fact that I have been vegan for the last, year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's actually been, and I think it's probably been about 2 years that I've been vegan. And the point for me to do that was to try to get fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the whole reason I wanted to do it. It was to help me lose weight, was to cut down inflammation. I also have a lot of heart disease in my family, and I'm trying to avoid the heart problems that my father and grandfather have had, and so I figured a vegan diet would help with that, and
sure.
I certainly did that to try to get faster. But if I'm on vacation or I'm not going to completely deny myself just because I've got a race in 6 weeks. If I got a race in 2 days, I might deny myself something, but a race in 6 weeks, I might eat that, frozen lemonade or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a terrible example.
So on the whole, I think what you're doing is good. I think it's a healthy thing, but I think that it comes to a point where maybe you're starting to dance on the line or flirting with maybe some eating disorders in the spirit of getting that watts per kilogram as high as you possibly can by cutting weight. There's that, and then there's the whole notion of, like you said, like passing on certain things and not being able to enjoy life because you just are solely focused on being fast. So you're losing a little bit of quality of life potentially.
Right.
But, in the same vein, it's good because maybe you're not overindulging on things like, eating cookies for days and drinking tons of alcohol and so on and so forth, and being mindful of your overall health and fitness and wellness and fun stuff. Cool. So let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about health. Do you think that you ever jeopardize or compromise your health in the name or the spirit of going faster on the bike?
Yes, I absolutely do. I've joked about this a bit. Now, certainly, one thing that I've done in the last few years is I realized how hard it was on my body to be pushing myself for longer than 5 or 6 hours. If I'm pushing for longer than 5 or 6 hours, it's I can tell that it's not good for me.
Yeah.
Is it good stuff up? Oh, the gorillas just went. Oh. Sorry, the gorillas just were put away and I missed it.
Oh.
Thanks, Jake.
Sorry, I'll send you a video. Find one on YouTube. You can watch that.
So I've realized that about myself, and it's one of the things why when I have raced longer races, if they have a shorter race option for me, I've been doing it, even though I joke that it's the kiddie race, or I'm doing the kiddie race, or I'm not doing the full meal deal. I'm doing the, shorter ones, but that's, I'm okay with that at that stage in my life. One of the things that I do jeopardize myself at, is descending. I know Phil talked about that directly in his article, but, I love to descend fast. I have crashed very badly descending fast. It still hasn't slowed me down from doing it.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm stupid or have a death wish or that I just really enjoy it. I don't know. I think a big part of it is, and I joke, I've lived a good life. If I wanted to descend fast, I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to do it because I feel like I have a clean conscience. I don't have anything I have to make up for.
Well, that's a whole nother point of this article that he touches on, and that's risks. And we'll get into that more in just a moment. But going back into the health component of it, he's talking about like the fact that cycling is a non-weight bearing sport, and it neglects a lot of the impact that you need in order to maintain proper bone density and things of that nature, so that osteoporosis doesn't become an issue. Do you think that there's anything else in the world of health that you're compromising? Maybe like muscle imbalances or poor posture because all you do is hunch over a bike for hours upon hours. I mean, do you think that there's something there?
That's a good question. I've done so much weight bearing exercise throughout my life.
Yeah.
And I clearly don't have a cyclist body.
Yeah.
I don't have the cyclist body type. I'm a little thicker. My upper body's a little thicker because of all the stuff I've done. And it's just the way my body type is too. So I don't know that, I'm jeopardizing that. I also have back issues.
Yeah.
And like weight, like deadlifts are a great exercise for cyclists.
Yeah.
Not me.
Exactly.
I cannot do deadlifts anymore.
You and me both.
Yeah. So, I have to kind of watch that stuff too.
How about those weeks though, where you're getting in 25 hours of riding and then you're just dog tired and you're going home and you're sitting in your spa, you're sitting in your on your couch or your sauna or whatnot, and then you're going to bed and you're resting and you're just not getting the proper load on your body. Do you think that could be an issue if that was something that you were to subscribe to and do long term?
Yeah, I think it probably could be if I'm not doing some kind of weight bearing, long term.
Gotcha.
Then yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Point taken. I personally don't think I do too much yard work and throwing stuff around whenever I can, minus my shoulder. But yeah, I definitely get a lot of resistance stuff, and so it's not an issue for me. Let's get into the next one. That one being sleep. It's definitely critical for your performance in terms of recovery and your immune system, and keeping a positive mood about you, if you will. But let's talk about all right, well, you've got to train, and instead of sleeping in and getting that magical 8 hours of sleep, which I haven't seen in God knows how long, you're getting up early and you're going out and you're training and doing interval sessions, and you're getting maybe 5.5 and 6 hours of sleep instead because you're more keen on making sure that you're getting those reps in. Do you find that to be an issue for you?
Well, I don't, mostly because I don't have a job.
Yeah, I think we all kind of alluded to that a little bit to some degree.
Yeah. So that doesn't really, I can get up whenever I want to. And certainly sleep has become very important to me. It's become very important to me the last few years. I certainly feel better when I get the right amount of sleep. I'm the one in the group of us that has, I have the Whoop strap that tracks my sleep. I've kind of become addicted to the numbers that I look at it. I base a lot of what I do in the last 4 or 5 hours of the day to make sure I get good sleep.
Yep.
And so that's become an important thing to me.
Yep.
I don't wake up early to train anymore unless I'm meeting a group of people.
Yeah.
If there's a specific event that we're doing, and I even go so far that I don't drive to races anymore the day of the race, especially if it's more than like 30 minutes away. I'm not kidding. I drive there the night before and sleep in the parking lot, but I do have a van that allows me to do that. But it lets me get way better sleep right the night before the race as well. And I think it's helped my performance,
That is such a benefit. Such a benefit. I can think of so many times of getting up at 4:30 in the morning so you can start the hydration and the fueling process and getting everything packed up because you got to leave at 5:45 so you can drive 2 hours to get to a race that starts at said time. That is a strain in itself on your body. When you can just naturally wake up and know that you've got plenty of time and you've got all your stuff already there with you, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So
it's just it's just like comfortable.
Yep.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
How about for somebody like Evan? What would you say to Evan when it comes to sleep? You got a guy here that, he's working 50, 60 hours a week, and he's training 20 to 30 hours a week, and he's, trying to be a good fiance and trying to have some social aspects built into his life. And I think that the thing that gets shorted on him the most would be his sleep. What would you say to Evan?
It's the time of life. I hate to say it, but Evan's he's gonna go short on sleep. If he was just a pro athlete and didn't have a career, then that'd be something else. If he just had the career and wasn't trying to be a pro athlete, then that'd be something else. But I mean, I was the same way, except that I wasn't a pro athlete, but I worked, 60 or 70 hours a week for 20 years. And I prided myself on the fact that I could get by on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Stupid. No, I was surviving. I was not thriving on that much sleep, And so I hate to say it, but Evan's in the thick of it. He's in the hustle. He needs to be hustling if he's going to be trying to do both of these things, and sleep's going to suffer. Something's going to suffer.
What about fast forwarding and talking to future Evan when he's married and all of a sudden they welcome a little one to this world, and he's now going to have some choices to make. He's going to have to look at all right, I got to be a dad and I got to work and I'm going to try and be a pro triathlete. Something's going to break. Something's going to suffer tremendously. And you've famously said before, you can only do three things. And we can kind of put this into that realm. I mean, something's going to give. Either he's not going to sleep at all and everything's just going to fall apart, or something's going to have to go. What happens with Evan when he gets to that station in life?
I think his training goes to 15 or 12 or 10 hours a week instead of 20. That's what I think.
He's got to start leaning on those dad watts, right?
Yeah. Because you don't want to sacrifice your job. You don't want to sacrifice your family. You have to keep those two things going.
Yeah.
So
that lucrative sponsorship, professional triathlete paycheck is gonna suffer for him, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I agree.
All right. So the next one would be misery. Just talking about all of the fantasizing of suffering out there and just being slumped over your bars and just absolutely killing yourself. Is that worth it? Does that enhance the sport for you? Does that make things better? Or is that something where you sit back and say, why did I do that to myself?
I am a, why did I do that to myself? There's times for that. And it might be during a longer race for me. That's the only time I will really push that hard. I mean, interval sets, if you want to get faster, you want to do interval sets, you got to look at the reasons why you're really wanting to get faster.
Yep.
Do you have a specific goal in mind, or are you just trying to burn too many candles at once?
Yeah.
So
there's a time and a place, I think, but I mean, when you're trying to do it to earn a paycheck and you're trying to get in those last couple intervals, Phil says that, let me give you permission to skip your last interval and just go home if you want to.
I believe he said, if you're a pro athlete, you finish that last interval set. If you're a dentist, forget that last interval set. I believe that's what he said.
Yeah. So, and that kind of comes back to the whole thing is this. I mean, I'm sure he was written when he had this article come out. It was written to speak to maybe the pro triathlete, but there are a lot of people that strive to be like pro triathletes, that emulate their work ethic, and that, for all intents and purposes, might be putting in that kind of energy, that work, and that effort.
Yeah.
And is that pointless? That's the question. So, to certain respects, maybe. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I've talked about this before, and I found in my own life I could only really do three things really well.
Mm-hmm.
I could either be a good father, a good businessman, or a good athlete. I couldn't be a good father, good businessman, good athlete, good church-going boy. I could only juggle three things at once to do really well. And in the same note, I mean, the years where I was really focusing on triathlon, this was 2002 to 2005 or 2006. Those years I was really focused on Ironman, trying to make it to the World Championships. And my whole business life suffered. My business has suffered. My career suffered, and I didn't care so much. I was so focused on just my family and the training.
Yeah.
And it kind of hurt things a bit. Then once I turned back away from trying to train like that and focused more on my business, my business took off. I did fantastic. I made a ton of money. It's but I gained 60 pounds.
Like you do.
So there was a trade-off there, and I haven't, I wasn't able to really take the weight off properly until I was actually able to turn the other direction and stop working entirely. So
yeah, well, that feeds itself right into the next thing of time, and he basically says that everything you do comes at a cost of something else you could be doing. I wholeheartedly agree with that one. I could be faster. I could be leaner. I could be more fit. I could train harder. I could do a lot of things, but that would come at a massive penalty to like my family and to this work thing that I'm trying to do, and maybe some other stuff like being social or being a team director.
Right.
It's not really worth it. Maybe cycle through it at different times of the year. Maybe try and be on point different times of the year, but year round, I just can't do it. I don't have the time to delegate. I was saying earlier to Matt, I'm like, I think I'm an okay dad. I don't think I'm a fantastic father of the year kind of thing, but I also don't think I'm the worst. But if I try to dedicate more time to being, faster on the bike, everything else would suffer.
It would suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm trying to still, after doing this for a decade and a half, if not longer, I'm still trying to find what that magical number is. And at the end of the day, it just kind of ebbs and flows. There's going to be certain times of the year where, I can get in 12, 13, 14, 15 hours of training. And then there's certain times of the year where it's like, I'm struggling just to get in 8. And for some people that might sound like a lot, but I just think that, you got to know what's important to you. Your kids are only around for so long, and your relationships with your friends are more important than getting that extra hour or two on the bike. So I'm going to make those sacrifices, and that's just kind of where I'm at. So in that respect, I wholeheartedly agree with him.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right, the last one, and this one is your name's come up on this one a couple times. The risks, the risk component of the stuff that we're doing on bicycles. Phil talks about having memories of losing contact with the front group on a climb, and then having to catch back on by weaving through team cars and rainy descents and bombing into corners and just going balls out just so that he can catch back on. We talked about you taking some risks that were not necessarily unnecessary, but you're the guy that, clear conscience and free mind or whatever, and you're just going to go bomb it because you want to do that. What's your thought on that?
Well, that's the thing. I take way more risks than I should, and I know it. But I'm in a different spot where I don't have to make money because of my body at the moment.
Yeah.
So if I injured myself, whatever it is, taking those risks is stupid, especially for a masters athlete. I know that. I realize that, but I can't turn it off. You know?
That's what I was saying too. That it's like a switch in your brain that it gets turned on or turns off or whatever, and you just still go out there and do it. And you'll think about it in retrospect. You'll go back and you'll look at your ride profile and like, really, I hit 50 some odd miles an hour going down that descent, and I went into that corner that fast, and I took this KOM on a descent. I'm like, why did I do that? But
why did I do that?
In the moment, it all makes perfect sense. You know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's fun, and it's those rare times where there's a rock in the road.
Right. But you turn around and it makes it a whole different thing for sure. I don't know. I guess I just don't have. Yeah, I take way too many risks. I'm fully aware of that.
Is it worth it?
Probably not. For what reason? No. I mean, the only times it has been worth it is because I've taken those risks descending. I've gotten more comfortable and more.
Sure.
I've gotten more comfortable at descending, or picking lines to safely do it.
Yeah.
People joke, that boy, Lance, you sure do crash a lot. I've heard that before, because I have crashed a lot, but most of my crashes are slow speed, easy. They're not. I haven't really been injured badly, except for one time descending Palomar Mountain 2 years ago. So I haven't really been injured badly, but because I've done all that descending, it made my skill at descending much better.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Granted, we get into a gravel race, and I'm so much more comfortable descending quickly, even on a gravel bike, that I won a race because of it.
Sure.
Twice, the Cascade Gravel Grinder, there were 2 stages that I won, not based on my descending skill, but it helped me pull away from my competitors, because of my descending skill. That just reinforces the fact for me that that's part of my skill set, and so I'm okay with taking risks on a descent.
Sure.
I still don't think it's smart.
Yeah, and in the same breath, too, I mean, during the course of a year, we're going to have 300-plus rides that we're going to log. That's a lot of rides, and if you are having people that are maybe not your cyclists per se, maybe it's just people that know you, or maybe they're very casual and they maybe get on a bike a handful of times a year, and they see that you've crashed like 3 or 4 times this year. When you do the math and you look at the style of riding you do and the sheer number of hours and miles and sessions you're putting in, we've always said it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to have a go down. When you start to look at it statistically speaking, it's not that bad. I mean, if you're crashing once a week, I'd have to pull you aside and say, Lance, come on, let's get you some training wheels, bud. But that's not the case. I mean, you've proven that you've got some skills on the bike, and when I've watched you do it, and from time to time, you're gonna have a little stupid little like fall over in the bush or something like that, and have a good laugh about it. But the big serious ones, I've only known you to have really just the one Palomar incident that really like did a number on you. Has anything else in the almost 6 years that I've known you has there been any other crashes other than that?
No, everything else has been skin. That's it.
Yeah, and so in the grand scheme of things, you really don't crash that much, and you take a lot of risks. So again, it's calculated. You've come out the backside pretty good, and we always joke that you've got that lucky rabbit's foot that you keep in your jersey pocket. But
you got something there.
It is what it is. But what would your advice be to somebody that is newer to the sport, or somebody that's kind of in this paradigm of like, I want to get faster and I want to keep up with the group, and I'm going to go and take the chances to try and do my thing? What are you going to say to them?
If you're not in a life point where there's many other people relying on you, I don't know that I would take those risks.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not recommend what I'm doing to a lot of other people, because just life, your point in your life is going to be different than where mine is.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, and it's always a calculated risk, and you got to know the cards that you're dealt, and you got to know your skills. You got to know what your abilities are, and stay within those abilities. Don't push it so much that you are constantly putting yourself in harm's way. There are people that do crash a lot, and it's because they're trying to do things that maybe that's not necessarily something that they're ready to do yet. Maybe they need to back it off, or figure out some sort of way to fine tune those skills.
I will say, because I've crashed a lot, I'm much better at handling my bike. I mean, I did 20 mountain bike races over the last 4 months, and I only crashed in one of them, mountain bike races, which is pretty rare. I just got way better at handling the bike too, just because of all that.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool. So,
anyway.
Final question for you, and we'll let you get back to your meerkats.
All right.
Is being fast pointless?
For a masters athlete, yep.
You think so? Phil did say you only need to be fast enough to safely enjoy the rides that you do. Would you agree with that?
Correct. I do agree with that.
So, and then taking it beyond that is probably pointless because you're a masters athlete and there's no sense in being that fast.
Or you're going to give up so much more for that extra 5% that it's not going to matter so much.
Yeah.
You know?
If you can retire early and your kids are all gone and you're not running around to soccer, and you've got the ability to drive to events and sleep in your adventure van, and you can train accordingly, then maybe being a little bit faster, maybe you can move the bar up a little bit higher in terms of what we're saying is reasonable. But on the whole, that's your point, is that?
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. You're how much longer are you going to be down there in the old Disney World? You're on day 3 right now?
Today's we're on day 3 at Disney World. Today's our last day. Then we're headed to southern Florida to visit some family for a few days. And then my wife are going to slowly make our way back across the country. Take a couple weeks.
Nice. Hey, quick question for you. When was the last time you logged onto YouTube to check the Dialed Cycling channel? Have you checked that recently?
No.
No? You want to take a stab at where we're at right now?
You mean how many
subscribers? Yeah.
What are we at? Like, are we at 900 now?
Keep going.
What? Is 1,000? Have we broken 1,000?
We are sitting at currently, as we talk right now, at 999.
We need one more subscriber to break 1,000.
Somebody please subscribe to our Dialed Cycling channel on the YouTubes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's been creeping up lately, and I've been working on another video that will get posted up here pretty soon. But yeah, it's kind of fun to see that it's hitting that 1K mark is kind of cool. So not too bad for a couple knuckleheads that started doing this late last year.
I know. I love it.
It's all fun time. So cool. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your family time. Say hi to everybody. We will catch you when you get back, and hopefully maybe touch base with you next week and find out where you're at in the world.
All right, Jake. Thanks,
all right,
buddy.
Lance. Take care, bud. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. On that note, we are done. That is it. We will be back next week for another fun podcast, hopefully a normal podcast. We appreciate you listening. Until then, bye for now.